My department chair stole my research. 12 years of work. A patent worth $12 million. He put his name on my paper, removed mine, and submitted it to the journal as his own. I'm 58 years old. I've been a tenured professor of mechanical engineering at this university for 32 years. I've published 73 papers, mentored 200 graduate students, and brought in $40 million in research funding. And my 35-year-old boss just told me I should consider early retirement because I'm not keeping up with modern research methods. What happened next destroyed his career and made me the dean of engineering. If you've ever had someone younger steal credit for your work, if you've ever been told you're obsolete when you know you're still at the top of your field, this story is for you. Hit that like button right now and subscribe, because what I discovered about Dr. Marcus Chen, what I did to expose him at the biggest engineering conference in the world, it proved that experience and integrity will always destroy arrogance and fraud. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I want to know how far this reaches. My name is Dr. Thomas Brennan, and I was about to learn that the most dangerous thing you can do to a senior professor is underestimate how much evidence he knows how to gather. The meeting where it all started happened on a Tuesday morning. Marcus called me into his office. "Tom," he said, "we need to talk about your trajectory. Your publication rate has declined. Your funding hasn't kept pace. I think it's time we discussed transitioning you toward emeritus status." Emeritus status. Academics speak for forced retirement. I'd published 4 papers that year, brought in $2.3 million in grants. But Marcus wanted me gone, and I was about to find out why. 3 days after that meeting, I received a journal submission confirmation email, except I hadn't submitted anything. The email was CC'd to me by mistake. It was addressed to Marcus, confirming receipt of his paper titled Revolutionary Advances in Microactuator Design for Surgical Robotics. I stared at that title. I'd been working on microactuators for 12 years. It was my entire research program. I opened the attached manuscript. Every diagram was mine. Every equation was mine. Every experimental result came from my lab. But the author line read, Dr. Marcus Chen, primary author, Dr. Thomas Brennan, technical consultant. Technical consultant. He'd taken my 12 years of work and listed me as a footnote. I checked the patent application database. There it was. Chen M had filed a provisional patent 3 weeks earlier. For my invention, using my data, claiming primary inventorship, the patent that I'd been preparing to file for 2 years, the one worth an estimated $12 million in licensing fees, he'd stolen it. But I couldn't prove he'd stolen it. Everything had been done through proper university channels. He was department chair, he had authority to review my work, to access my lab, to see my unpublished data, and he'd used that authority to take everything. I called the journal. "I'm Dr. Brennan," I said. "I was listed as technical consultant on the Chen submission. I believe there's been an error in authorship." The editor was sympathetic, but clear. "Dr. Chen submitted as primary author and corresponding author. If you have an authorship dispute, you'll need to resolve it with him directly before publication. I can't change authorship based on one party's complaint. I'd have to fight Marcus directly, and he had all the institutional power. He could make my life hell. He could deny my tenure privileges. He could shut down my lab, block my students, destroy what was left of my career. But I had something he didn't have. 32 years of experience documenting everything. Every email, every lab notebook, every meeting note, every draft. If he wanted war, I'd give him war. But first, I needed to understand how deep this went. I started investigating, quietly. I went through every paper Marcus had published in the 5 years since becoming department chair. 17 papers total. I tracked down the graduate students and postdocs listed as co-authors. I called them casual conversations, congratulating them on publications, asking about their research experiences. What I found was a pattern. 8 different researchers told me the same story. Marcus had taken their work, added his name as primary author, threatened their careers if they complained. One former postdoc, Sarah Kim, had left academia entirely. He took my entire dissertation project, she told me, published it under his name. When I objected, he threatened to blacklist me, said no one would believe a postdoc over a department chair. I had to choose between fighting and finishing my PhD. I chose finishing. Then I left research forever. I asked if she'd kept evidence. She had emails, draft manuscripts with her name, lab notebooks, all of it. "Are you going after him?" she asked. "I am," I said. "Will you help?" She paused. Then, "Yes, I'll help. Because what he did to me, he's doing to others. Someone has to stop him." I contacted 7 other former lab members. 6 agreed to provide evidence. Together, we had proof that Marcus had committed systematic research fraud for 5 years, stolen work from at least 9 researchers, filed 3 patents using others' data, published papers with fabricated authorship. But I needed more. I needed to prove he'd falsified data, because everything else could be argued as authorship disputes. Gray areas, academic politics, data falsification was unambiguous. It was scientific misconduct, career-ending, and I was betting Marcus had done it because his publication rate was impossible. 17 papers in 5 years. All high-impact journals, all supposedly from his own lab work. But Marcus didn't have a lab. He had an office. He didn't run experiments. He attended meetings, which meant the data had to be coming from somewhere. I started checking his figures against the original lab records, and I found it. Paper number 12, published 2 years ago, claimed breakthrough efficiency in actuator energy consumption. The figures showed perfect exponential improvement. Too perfect, I cross-referenced with the lab notebooks from that project. The student who'd done the work was Jun Park, now a professor in South Korea. I emailed him, Jun, I'm reviewing some historical data for a meta-analysis. Can you send me your original datasets from the 2022 actuator project? He sent them within an hour. I compared them to the published figures. Marcus had changed the numbers, increased efficiency values by 40%, removed outlier data points that contradicted his narrative, smoothed curves that should have been jagged. He'd committed data fraud, and I had proof, but proof wasn't enough. I needed the right moment, the right audience. I needed to destroy him so completely that he couldn't retaliate. That's when I saw the announcement. The International Conference on Advanced Robotics and Mechatronics ICARM, the biggest conference in our field, held every 3 years. This year in Boston, 3,000 attendees. Every major research lab, every company, every funding agency, and Marcus was giving the keynote address. On breakthrough advances in microactuator design, my work, stolen, being presented as his. I submitted an abstract for a regular session, titled, A Comprehensive Review of Microactuator Development Methodology, Data Integrity and Attribution. It was accepted. I was scheduled for the day after Marcus's keynote. I spent 3 months preparing a built-a presentation showing every piece of evidence, side-by-side comparisons of stolen work, original lab notebooks next to published papers, emails from researchers describing Marcus's threats, statistical analysis proving data manipulation, timeline showing impossible publication rates, patent applications filed using others' data. I contacted the university provost, Dr. Reeves. I have evidence of serious research misconduct by Dr. Chen. I'd like to present it formally. She was skeptical. Tom, authorship disputes are complicated. Are you sure you want to pursue this? This isn't a dispute, I said. This is fraud. Data falsification, theft of intellectual property. Pattern of abuse spanning 5 years, multiple victims. I have documentation. She agreed to review my evidence. 2 weeks later, she called me, Tom, this is serious. If what you're showing is accurate, we need to launch a formal investigation, but I need you to understand, accusations like this can backfire. If you're wrong, your career is over. I'm not wrong, I said, and I'm not waiting for an internal investigation that Marcus can manipulate. I'm presenting this at ICARM, publicly. She was silent then. That's your choice. But if you do this, there's no going back. Good, I said, because he's been getting away with this for 5 years. No more. The conference arrived. Marcus gave his keynote to 2,000 people. Standing ovation. Brilliant, they said. Revolutionary. I sat in the back and watched him bask in applause for my work. The next day, my session was scheduled for a small room. Expected attendance, 50 people, but word had spread. My title was provocative. People knew tension existed between Marcus and me. When I arrived at my session, the room was packed. 300 people. Standing room only. Conference organizers had to move us to a larger venue. Marcus was in the front row, smirking. I started my presentation calmly. Today, I'm going to discuss research integrity. Specifically, what happens when a department chair systematically steals the work of junior researchers, falsifies data, and files patents using others' inventions. The room went silent. Marcus's smirk disappeared. I showed the first slide. Marcus Chen's publication record, 17 papers in 5 years. Impressive, I said. Until you realize he doesn't have a lab, doesn't run experiments, doesn't supervise students day to day. So where did this work come from? Next slide. Side-by-side comparison. My lab notebook from 2019, Marcus's paper from 2020. Identical diagrams, identical data, different author. I developed this actuator design, I said, spent 12 years on it. Dr. Chen submitted it as his own work, listing me as technical consultant, without my permission, without my knowledge. Murmurs in the audience. Marcus stood up. This is inappropriate, he said. Dr. Brennan is disgruntled about retirement discussions. This is a personal attack disguised as scholarship. Sit down, Marcus, I said. I'm just getting started. Next slide. Email from Sarah Kim, describing how Marcus stole her dissertation. Next slide. Email from Jun Park, providing original data. Next slide. Marcus's published figures. Chen's actual data. I overlaid them. The numbers didn't match. Dr. Chen increased efficiency values by 40%, I said. He removed data points that contradicted his hypothesis. He falsified results to make the work appear more significant. That's scientific misconduct. Marcus tried to leave. Security, I called. Please ensure Dr. Chen stays. This concerns him directly. He sat back down, face red. The conference organizers had positioned security at the doors after the room filled unexpectedly. They blocked his exit. I continued. Patent theft. I showed the patent application, filed by Chen 3 weeks before I could file my own. Using 12 years of my research, estimated value $12 million, timeline analysis. I showed Marcus's publication rate, impossible for one person, overlaid with former lab members' dissertation dates. Every major Chen publication coincided with a graduate student's thesis defense. He wasn't doing research, he was stealing it. Testimony compilation. 9 researchers, 8 of them agreed to be named publicly, all describing the same pattern. Marcus taking credit, threatening careers, forcing silence. I showed their statements, one by one. By the time I finished, 50 minutes had passed. The room was in chaos. People shouting questions, reporters recording, conference organizers on phones. And Marcus was sitting in the front row, destroyed. An investigative journalist from Science magazine approached me after. Dr. Brennan, this is the biggest misconduct scandal I've seen in a decade. Can I interview you? Yes, I said. Interview all of us. The story broke 3 days later. Science magazine ran it as the cover story. Systematic research fraud. How a rising academic star built his career on stolen work. They interviewed all 9 victims. They verified every piece of evidence. They contacted the university, the journal, the patent office. The university launched a formal investigation. Marcus was suspended immediately. His lab was shut down. His students were reassigned. The journal retracted 4 of his papers. 6 others were under review. Patent applications were frozen pending fraud investigation. Marcus hired lawyers. Expensive ones? They sent me a cease and desist, claiming defamation, demanding I retract my statements. My attorney laughed when he read it. Tom, he said, you have documentation for everything. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. Let them sue. They won't. He was right. They didn't sue, because discovery would expose even more misconduct. Instead, Marcus tried to negotiate. He called me. Tom, he said, we can work this out. I'll add you as co-author on the papers. We can share the patent. Just stop talking to reporters. No, I said. You don't get to negotiate theft. You stole from 9 people. You falsified data. You threatened careers. There's no settlement here. There's only accountability. The investigation took 6 months. The university's findings were devastating. Marcus had committed research misconduct on 17 separate occasions, falsified data in 8 papers, stolen intellectual property from 9 researchers, filed fraudulent patent applications, violated university policies on authorship and research integrity. He was terminated, stripped of tenure, banned from federal research funding for 7 years. All 17 of his papers were either retracted or corrected with proper authorship. The patents were reassigned. My microactuator patent was granted with me as primary inventor. The university negotiated a licensing deal with a medical device company, $12 million. My share as inventor, 40%, $4.8 million. I didn't care about the money. I cared about the principle. But the money helped, because I used it to do something Marcus never would have done. I established a fund, the Brennan Research Integrity Fund, supporting graduate students and postdocs who experience misconduct, providing legal assistance, protecting whistleblowers, ensuring no one else would have to choose between their career and speaking up. And then I did something else. I ran for department chair, the position Marcus had vacated. I won unanimously, and I spent the next year rebuilding everything he'd destroyed. I contacted every researcher Marcus had stolen from. I offered co-authorships on corrected papers. I helped them file their own patents. I wrote letters of recommendations supporting their careers. Sarah Kim, who'd left academia, came back. I hired her as a research professor in my department. Her career wasn't over. It was restarting. Jun Park received proper credit for the actuator efficiency work. He used it to secure a major grant in South Korea. Every person Marcus had hurt, I helped rebuild. But my work didn't stop there. I started advocating for stronger misconduct policies. At my university, at conferences, at funding agencies, I testified before the National Science Foundation about the need for better protections for junior researchers. I gave talks at universities across the country about recognizing and reporting misconduct. Before I continue, I need to ask you something. Are you still with me? Are you invested in this story? If you are, please hit that like button right now. It helps more people find this story. People who've experienced what I experienced. People who need to know that fighting back is possible. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe now. Because every week, we share stories of people over 50 who were told they were obsolete, pushed aside, and fought back to prove their value. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever had someone steal credit for your work? Have you ever been told you're too old when you know you're at your peak? I want to hear your stories. Now, back to what happened next, because exposing Marcus was just the beginning. 2 years after his termination, the university offered me a new position, Dean of the College of Engineering, at 59 years old, I became the academic leader of 1,200 students, 200 faculty, and a $150 million research portfolio. The same year Marcus had told me I should consider early retirement. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. At my installation ceremony, I spoke about the importance of integrity in research, about protecting junior scholars, about recognizing that experience and mentorship matter as much as productivity metrics. Marcus wasn't there, obviously, but his shadow was, because everyone remembered what he'd done, and everyone knew I'd been the one to stop him. My work as dean focused on culture change. I implemented new policies requiring transparent authorship discussions, mandatory training on research ethics, anonymous reporting systems for misconduct, protection for whistleblowers, and I promoted based on integrity, not just publication count. 5 years into my DNship, I received an email from Marcus. The subject line read, "Apology." I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. "Tom," it began, "I know I have no right to contact you. I know I destroyed my career and hurt countless people. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just need you to know that what you did was right. I spent 3 years angry, bitter, blaming you for ruining my life. But you didn't ruin my life. I did. I got arrogant. I thought I was smarter than everyone. I thought I could take shortcuts and no one would notice. I was wrong. I've been working as a high school science teacher for the past 2 years. It's humbling. These kids don't care about my PhD. They care whether I can explain concepts clearly and treat them with respect. I'm a better teacher than I ever was a researcher, because I'm finally being honest. I'm not writing to ask you to forgive me. I'm writing to tell you that you saved lives. Sarah Kim told me she'd considered suicide after I destroyed her career. You'd brought her back. Jun Park told me he'd lost faith in science. You restored it. I stole from 9 people. You helped all 9 rebuild. That's your legacy. Mine is a cautionary tale. Thank you for stopping me before I hurt anyone else. Marcus? I read it 3 times. Then I replied, Marcus, I appreciate you writing. I hope you found peace in teaching. But understand this. I didn't do what I did for you. I did it for every researcher you hurt. For every graduate student who's been exploited by someone with power. For every senior professor who's been told to step aside when they still have value to give. You made choices. Those choices had consequences. I'm glad you're teaching. I hope you do it with integrity. But you don't get absolution from me. You get accountability. That's all. I never heard from him again. But I thought about that email often because Marcus represented something bigger than one person's misconduct. He represented a system that valued productivity over integrity, that worshipped youth and dismissed experience, that let power protect bad behavior. And I'd spent 5 years trying to change that system. At 63, I'd published more papers than ever, mentored more students, built a college, ranked in the top 20 nationally, and I'd done it without stealing, without shortcuts, without exploiting anyone. At 65, I was invited to give the keynote at ICARM, the same conference where I'd exposed Marcus 6 years earlier. The organizers asked me to speak about research integrity. I accepted. The keynote hall was packed. 3,000 people, the same room where Marcus had received a standing ovation for my stolen work. I began with a story. 6 years ago, I sat in this room and watched someone present my research as his own. Today, I'm standing here as the dean of one of the top engineering colleges in the nation. Not because I was the most productive, not because I was the youngest, but because I refused to let fraud go unchallenged. I talked about the importance of integrity, about protecting junior researchers, about recognizing that experience isn't obsolescence, that senior scholars aren't dead weight to be retired early. We're mentors, guardians of standards, people who've seen enough to recognize misconduct when others miss it. I spoke for 40 minutes. When I finished, the applause was deafening. But more importantly, 12 people approached me afterward, all with stories of misconduct they'd witnessed, all afraid to speak up. I gave them my contact information. I connected them with resources. I helped 3 of them file formal complaints. All 3 resulted in investigations, 2 resulted in termination, 1 resulted in retraction of 15 papers. The ripples from my decision to speak up kept spreading. At 67, I published a book, Integrity in Research, How to Build a Career Without Shortcuts. It became required reading in PhD programs across the country. At 68, I testified before Congress about the need for stronger federal protections against research misconduct. The legislation passed. It's now called the Brennan Act. It protects whistleblowers, mandates transparency in authorship, and creates enforcement mechanisms for misconduct. At 70, I retired from the deanship, not because anyone pushed me, but because I was ready. I'd rebuilt the college, changed policies, protected researchers, exposed fraud, and I'd proven that 60-year-olds aren't obsolete. We're essential. At my retirement ceremony, Sarah Kim spoke. Dr. Brennan saved my career. She said, more than that, he saved my belief that science could be honest, that good people could win, that fighting back was worth it. I was 30 when Marcus destroyed me. I'm 40 now, and I've published 20 papers, mentored 15 students, and never compromised my integrity. Because Tom showed me it was possible. Jun Park spoke via video from South Korea. Professor Brennan taught me that data is sacred, he said. That shortcuts destroy science. That one person with courage can stop a wave of corruption. I teach my students what he taught me. Your reputation is built on honesty, not productivity. 10 years after exposing Marcus, I was inducted into the National Academy of Engineering, the highest honor in my field. The ceremony citation read, "For outstanding contributions to microactuator design and for exemplary leadership in promoting research integrity." At 72, I still consult. I advise universities on research integrity policies. I mentor graduate students who have experienced misconduct. I serve on investigation panels, and I give talks. Lots of talks. Because the problem Marcus represented hasn't disappeared. Research misconduct still happens. Senior researchers are still pushed aside. Junior researchers are still exploited. But more people are fighting back now because they've heard stories like mine. One graduate student contacted me last year. "Professor Brennan?" Her email read, "My advisor is stealing my work. I have evidence, but I'm terrified. If I report him, he'll destroy my career. I'll never get my PhD. I'll be blacklisted. Everyone tells me to stay quiet, to just finish and leave. But I can't let him keep doing this to others. What do? I called her. We talked for 2 hours. I reviewed her evidence. It was solid. I connected her with an attorney. With the university ombudsman, with a support network of other researchers who'd been through this, she filed a formal complaint. The investigation took 8 months. Her advisor was found guilty of misconduct. Terminated, stripped of grants. She finished her PhD under a different advisor. Got a faculty position at a top university. And last month, she gave a TEDx talk about fighting misconduct, about refusing to be silenced, about the importance of senior mentors who believe you. She thanked me publicly. But I told her, "You did this. I just showed you it was possible." That's what my exposure of Marcus really did. It didn't just stop one person's fraud. It showed an entire field that fighting back was possible, that the system could work, that integrity could win. At 75, I was diagnosed with cancer, treatable, good prognosis. But it made me think about legacy. What would I leave behind? I'd published 83 papers, mentored 240 students, built a top-ranked engineering college, exposed major misconduct, changed federal policy, helped dozens of researchers fight back. But the thing I was proudest of wasn't any of those. It was the culture change. When I started my career 45 years ago, research misconduct was an open secret. Everyone knew it happened. No one talked about it. Reporting it ended your career, not the perpetrators. Now, universities have mandatory training, anonymous reporting systems, protections for whistleblowers, federal enforcement, and researchers know they can fight back and win, because people like me did it, and survived, and thrived. At 76, I'm cancer-free, still consulting, still mentoring, still advocating, still proving that senior researchers aren't obsolete. We're essential. Because we've seen enough to recognize patterns, we've built enough credibility to be believed. We've survived enough battles to know how to win. Marcus tried to push me into retirement at 58, told me I was outdated, obsolete, not keeping pace. He was 35, brilliant, fast publishing, the future of the field. I was 58, methodical, thorough, experienced. The past. According to him, 16 years later, I'm still working, still contributing, still making a difference. Marcus is teaching high school science. I don't say that to gloat. I say it because it proves something important. Speed isn't the same as quality. Youth isn't the same as wisdom. Productivity isn't the same as integrity. And pushing out senior people because they're not keeping pace is how organizations lose their moral compass. Because senior people have seen the patterns. We know what misconduct looks like. We remember the last time someone tried to cut corners and got away with it. We're the institutional memory. The guardians, when you push us out prematurely, you lose that. Marcus rose fast because no one with experience was watching carefully. By the time I caught him, he'd hurt 9 people. If I'd been pushed into retirement as he wanted, he'd have hurt 90. At 78, I gave my last public talk. At the 50th anniversary of ICARM, the same conference where everything started, I began with a question. How many of you were here 12 years ago when I exposed Dr. Marcus Chen? 200 hands went up. I continued. That presentation changed my life. It ended one career and launched another. But more importantly, it showed our field that we could demand integrity, that one person with evidence and courage could stop systemic misconduct. Today, I want to tell you what happened to the 9 researchers Marcus hurt. Sarah Kim is now a full professor. She runs her own lab. She's published 60 papers. She serves on the ethics committee of our field's largest professional society. She mentors graduate students on navigating misconduct. She turned her trauma into advocacy. Jun Park is a department chair in South Korea. He's built one of the top research programs in Asia. He implemented the most comprehensive research integrity policies in his country. He's training the next generation to value honesty over speed. The 7 others all continued in research. One is a vice president at a Fortune 500 company. One runs a national lab. 5 are tenured professors at major universities. Not one of them left science permanently, because I fought for them, and because they found the strength to keep going. But here's what I want you to know. I'm not special. I'm not uniquely brave. I'm just a professor who got angry at injustice and had enough evidence to do something about it. Anyone in this room could do what I did. If you see misconduct, document it. If you're being exploited, speak up. If someone tells you you're too old to matter, prove them catastrophically wrong, because you're not too old. You're experienced, and experience is how you recognize what younger people miss. I finished the talk to a standing ovation, but the real impact came in the months that followed. 17 researchers contacted me. All had witnessed or experienced misconduct. All were considering reporting it. All were afraid. I helped all 17. 12 investigations were launched. 9 found misconduct. 9 careers of perpetrators ended. 43 victims were vindicated. And the culture shifted a little more. At 17-9, I finally stopped consulting. Not because I couldn't do it anymore, but because I'd trained enough people to carry on. Sarah Kim now does what I did. Helps researchers fight misconduct. Several others do the same. The network I built continues without me. At 80, I wrote my memoir. The Long Game: How Patience, Evidence, and Integrity Beat Speed and Fraud. It wasn't a bestseller, but it found its audience. Graduate students, senior researchers, anyone who'd been told they were obsolete. The reviews that mattered most weren't in major publications. They were the emails I received. From a 62-year-old engineer who'd been pushed toward retirement and used my story to fight back and win. From a graduate student who'd been exploited and used my methods to document and report. From a department chair who'd implemented my integrity policies and stopped misconduct before it spread. Those were my real reviews. Proof that my story mattered. At 82, I was invited back to my university for the dedication of the Brennan Center for Research Integrity, a permanent institution funded by part of my patent money, staffed by full-time advocates, providing legal support, counseling, and resources for anyone experiencing misconduct. Sarah Kim was the founding director. At the dedication ceremony, the university president spoke. Dr. Brennan could have stayed quiet. She said he was 58, close to retirement. He could have let Marcus steal his work, taken early retirement, and avoided the fight. Instead, he risked everything. He exposed misconduct. He saved careers. He changed policies. He transformed our culture. This center exists because one person refused to accept that age meant obsolescence, that experience meant irrelevance, that fighting back was impossible. Tom showed us it wasn't just possible, it was necessary. I spoke briefly, I thanked everyone, but I focused on one thing. The center isn't about me, I said. It's about every researcher who comes after me, every graduate student who deserves protection, every senior scholar who deserves respect, every person who refuses to let misconduct go unchallenged. Use this center, trust it. And if you experience misconduct, fight back. Because integrity matters more than productivity. Truth matters more than speed. And your career, your work, your voice, they all matter, no matter your age. At 85, I'm still alive, still sharp, still writing occasionally, still mentoring a few students remotely, and still reminding anyone who will listen that the most dangerous thing institutions do is push out experienced people who've seen enough to recognize when something's wrong. Marcus Chen is still teaching high school. I checked on him once, years ago. He's apparently good at it. Students like him. He's honest now, humble. I don't hate him, I just remember what he represented. A system that valued speed over integrity, youth over experience, productivity over honesty. And I spent 2 decades proving that system wrong. At 86, I attended Sarah Kim's promotion ceremony. She became dean of her college, the same position I'd held. In her speech, she said, 20 years ago, I was ready to leave science forever. One professor had destroyed my career, but another professor showed me that good people fight back and win. Tom Brennan taught me that integrity isn't weakness, it's power. That experience isn't obsolescence, it's wisdom. That age isn't decline, it's perspective. I'm dean today because Tom refused to let me quit, because he showed me the fight was worth it. I'm in the audience now, crying, as Sarah speaks, because this is legacy. Not papers, not patents, not positions, but people. People who kept going because I fought. People who fight now because I showed them how. At 88, I was contacted by a documentary filmmaker. She wanted to make a film about research integrity, featuring my story and the stories of the 9 researchers Marcus had hurt. I agreed. The documentary, called The Long Game, premiered at a film festival. It won awards. But more importantly, it was shown in universities worldwide. Mandatory viewing in some PhD programs. Proof that one person's fight could become a movement. The film followed me to the Brennan Center, showed me mentoring researchers who'd experienced misconduct, interviewed Sarah, Chen, and 7 others, showed Marcus teaching high school, reflecting on his mistakes. And it ended with a simple message: experience is not obsolescence. At 90, I'm still here, slower, frailer, but still here, and I'm still occasionally asked to advise on misconduct cases. still occasionally asked to speak, still occasionally asked how I found the courage to fight Marcus. The answer is simple. I didn't start with courage. I started with anger. Anger that someone thought he could steal 12 years of my work. That someone thought being older meant I was disposable. That someone thought I wouldn't fight back. Anger isn't noble, but it's powerful. And when you combine anger with evidence, with patience, with a refusal to accept injustice, you get results. I fought Marcus at 58. I'm 90 now. 32 years later. And I've spent those 32 years proving that the best years of your career aren't necessarily your youngest. Sometimes they're the ones where you finally have enough experience to recognize what matters, enough credibility to be believed, enough perspective to know which battles are worth fighting. Marcus told me I should consider early retirement, that I wasn't keeping pace, that my best years were behind me. He was 35, I was 50, he's now 60. Still teaching high school, I'm 90. Still influencing policy, still mentoring researchers, still proving him wrong. At 92, I attended the 20th anniversary of the Brennan Center. 200 researchers attended. 43 of them were people the center had helped fight misconduct. 43 people who'd been exploited, who'd been told to stay quiet, who'd been afraid to speak up. All of them fought back. All of them won. Because the center showed them how. Because I'd shown the center how. At the event, a 28-year-old graduate student approached me. "Dr. Brennan," she said, "you saved my career. My advisor was stealing my work. The Brennan Center helped me report him. He was terminated. I finished my PhD. I got a faculty position. You've never met me, but you changed my life." I looked at this young woman, younger than Marcus had been when he'd stolen from me, and I thought, this is why I fought. Not for revenge, but for her. For everyone like her, for everyone who comes after. Thank you for watching my story. If it inspired you, if it made you angry at what Marcus did, if it gave you hope that fighting back is possible, even when you're told you're too old, I need you to do something right now. First, smash that like button. It tells YouTube this story matters and helps it reach researchers who are experiencing what I experienced. People who are being told they're obsolete when they're at their peak. People who need to know that experience is power, not weakness. Second, subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Every week, we share stories of people over 50 who were pushed aside, exploited, or told they were past their prime and fought back to prove their value. These are stories of integrity, courage, and refusing to be erased. Third, share this video. Send it to any researcher you know, any professor, any graduate student. Post it in academic communities. Help spread the message that research misconduct can be stopped, that experience matters, and that age is perspective, not decline. And finally, tell me your story in the comments below. Have you had your work stolen? Have you been told you're obsolete when you know you're still contributing? Have you witnessed misconduct and wondered if reporting it was worth it? I want to hear from you. This community is built on shared experiences and mutual support. Because every one of us has the power to fight. Every single one of us matters, no matter our age. Your experience is valuable. Your integrity is powerful. Your voice can change systems. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. Remember my story. I was 58. My department chair stole 12 years of my research. He filed patents using my inventions. He told me I should retire because I wasn't keeping pace. But I documented everything. I exposed him at the world's biggest conference. I helped 9 researchers rebuild their careers. I became Dean of Engineering. I changed federal policy. I created a center that's protected hundreds of researchers. I proved that experience isn't obsolescence, it's wisdom. That age isn't decline, it's perspective. That fighting back isn't just possible, it's necessary. If I could do it at 58, while being told I was washed up, while facing institutional power, you can do it too. Whatever you're facing, whatever your age, whatever they told you, you have power. Document everything, build your evidence, find allies, fight back, win. See you in the next story. Neither age, nor institutional power, nor stolen credit can stop someone who refuses to stay silent. Your integrity is waiting to be vindicated. Go claim it.